everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Film Scene. This week I'll be reviewing my second installment from my October series. The first one was The Fly, which was uploaded last week, and this week I'll be reviewing my second installment from my October series, and that is It Follows, which was directed by David Robert Mitchell, and it premiered at Cannes in 2014. So, this film follows one main character. Her name is Jay, and she's a teenager who lives in Detroit, Michigan, and she has a sexual encounter with another teenager one night, and then soon after he explains to her that now that they've had sex, that there will be a creature or an it that will be following her around until she sleeps with someone else, and then the cycle will continue and it'll be passed along. So I would like to discuss my likes and my dislikes, and then at the end I'll give an overall opinion of how I felt. I really liked the vibe of the film. It reminded me of Stranger Things because of the vibe and the music. The music was really good. It was a very subtle sort of build to the tension as opposed to, you know, a great big boom that just kind of scares you. So I liked the music. I thought really made the film for me. And I felt the film was really thought-provoking. The whole time I was wondering what what kind of metaphor was David setting up for this film, and I was just kind of contemplating the entire time what the whole theme or concept was for this film, which I really enjoy. I like those kind of films where you watch it with a friend or a family member and you're talking about it long after the film is over, so I really liked that aspect of it as well. Next thing I really liked was the cinematography. I felt like the shots were very symmetrical and the lighting was really good. It was like very subtle but very calming, like blue tones, which made me feel very calm, but also when it was paired with the very dramatic music, it was kind of a bit unnerving. So it was like a play on emotions, you could say, because I was watching it and the scenery and the camera work was very, you know, it was a lot of panning shots, so it was very fluid in movement, but also the music made your skin crawl a little bit, so I liked that sort of play on emotions. And what originally made me want to watch this film in the first place, I was just kind of clicking through on my TV trying to find, you know, a next film to watch, and a lot of the other reviews stated that it was very similar to that of Cabin in the Woods because the concept and it was a different play on a typical horror film, and I can see why, because Cabin in the Woods, you know, was about technology and it brought the element into the horror genre, and it's similar to this film because it was very sexually driven, but at the same time it brought in the understanding that that no one really knew what the it was and what was following these teenagers, and there are some theories. My pen fell. Okay. There are some theories as to what it was in this film, and I'll touch on those at the end as well. And my dislikes. For me, it was very slow at some points. My mind kind of wandered, and I looked at my phone, and so it was very slow at some point, especially in the middle. I think that's because of the writing. The writing is very simple. It was just very, you know, short one-lines between the characters. There wasn't a whole lot of depth within the conversations, which is fine, you know. But I think that just contributed to the slowness of this film. So that was kind of annoying for me because, you know, I view horror films as being something that's very suspenseful, and while there were those moments in this film, it was very slow, which caused me to lose interest. Another thing I didn't like was the lack of establishment between the time and the place of the film. Like I said, I felt a Stranger Things vibe because of the music and the set, the costumes and the cars and that kind of thing, which you know, I liked because I said I compared it to Stranger Things, so I felt it was in the 80s, but there were some times when I wasn't sure because there was one of the friends who was playing with this electronic tablet thing that was like very scrolly, and I was like, well, that would be like current times, but the 80s you know, didn't really jive, and like they were watching old films on the TV, which you could do now obviously, but the type of TV set they had was very old school, but they had the technology of today in terms of the girl scrolling through. So I think that there was a little bit of muddling between the time, which I wouldn't normally mind, because I feel like in a lot of films that it kind of makes the story more universal, because the story could take place at any time, any place, that sort of thing. But I feel like here they should have either established it or not established it, and it was kind of in between, which made me confused, but also it was hard for me to kind of get my footing within the film and the story and how everything played out. So that was another issue that I had with the film, because I didn't even know that the film was in Detroit until like more than halfway through, when one of the friends mentioned 8 Mile, which made me think of 8 Mile, the film with Eminem, and I was like, oh, that was in Detroit, so maybe this is in Detroit too. And I found that out after the film was over that it did actually take place in Michigan, and I felt like that just came way too late in the film. It should have just not brought up, I felt, because that was always in the back of my mind of where it took place, and it was just very, very confusing. So those are my likes and my dislikes, and now I'd like to present some of the theories behind what it was in this film. Because when I was watching it, of course, it's a very sexually driven story, so that caused me to think of STDs and, you know, HIV and AIDS, and maybe that was it that is following these teenagers. And that was a theory that was brought up, as well as I was looking at the other potential theories behind the it in this film. And I looked at Wikipedia, just, you know, for a quick search, and it mentioned that David Robert Mitchell was not concerned about what the it was. He was more just trying to create a nightmarish environment. That was what he was going for. So that all made sense to me. And there's also another potential element that was brought up for the it, was the idea of mortality and sex as being one way to escape the thought of one's death. So when a character had sex with another character, that thought of mortality was pushed away just for a little while until they got into the real world, and or I guess the thought of death approaching them took them out of their element and made them kind of snap back into reality. So that was another theory that was brought up as well. So those are my likes and my dislikes for the film, and overall I thought it was really, really well done in terms of the cinematography, as I said before, and the music. Those both made the film worth watching for me. As I said, it was slow, but I would definitely recommend it to watch, because as I said, it wasn't too scary, it wasn't too jarring. It was beautifully shot, so that alone is a good reason to watch it. And there's talk of having a second film, which would have the teenagers backtrack to where the actual it began, which I think would be really interesting as well. But yeah, those are my thoughts on It Follows. And stay tuned for next week when I have my 3rd installment for this series. Yeah, if you'd like to subscribe, hit that red subscribe button down below, and leave any comments for other suggestions you have for me. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!